Hey, this is Greg McAfee, and welcome to the Greg McAfee Show. Now let's get started. Hey, welcome back to the Greg McAfee Show, where we discuss steps to successful entrepreneurship, how to take your business to new heights, and ultimately follow your dreams. Today, we're in part 2 of team building for your organization. In other words, how to be more successful building a stronger team. It's very important, and it gets neglected today all the time. So again, today being part 2, I want to welcome back my son, Travis McAfee, who's going to be helping me discuss the team building skills. Hey, welcome back, Travis.
Hey, thank you. Good to be back.
It's good to have you here. Part 1 just went live today, and we're going to be working on part 2 of team building. And like we mentioned in part 1, we need to have, we'd like to have more people leave some comments and questions.
Yeah, comments will be great. That way we can kind of build part 3 based on these 2 episodes, what people are thinking, and hopefully help them out in their organizations a little bit more specifically. So
sure. I did have someone contact me with a few questions, and one is how big of a team is a good number to work with, and I always say keep it small. Jesus had 12. Mm-hmm. That was the perfect number. One of them didn't work out too well, fired himself.
Sure.
But he started with 12, and he could have picked 20. He could have picked 5, but he started with 12. So we definitely realize today, after 33 years, that teams have to be very cohesive, and they have to work well together. And, when you think about, especially right now with the college basketball playoffs going on. Mm-hmm. There's 5 on a team out there. There might be 11 total on the whole team.
Sure.
And so they have to be cohesive. They have to work together. When a sports team wins a championship, the team and the coaches often cite that playing together and being cohesive was the key to success. So how do you think we tie that in today in the business world of a small business? We're talking to business owners and business managers today running a team of 3 to 300.
Sure.
So how do you think keeping it small ties in with what we do today?
Yeah, so I'll start with the 300 number. It really doesn't matter, how big your organization is. I think everybody who would be listening to this has a desire to grow their company. I think what we're learning, what we've read about over the years, and what we've observed, you were part of the Marine Corps. I did a short stint with the Army, ROTC, and they always try to. Yes, you have a platoon, but within that platoon you have squads and you have squad leaders. So right here at McAfee we have about a 6-to-1 ratio. So each leader. They have about 6 people that they're responsible for, and that number tends to work pretty well for us. And so I think the bigger you get, you have to figure out, as you grow, you obviously, well, if you've grown that big, you probably can't afford to keep that ratio. But maybe it doesn't need to be 6. Maybe for you it could be 10-to-1. But you got to figure out for your company, for your culture, what type of ratio. Quote unquote Joes to leaders, what does that ratio need to be for your company? And right now we're sitting at about 6-to-1, and it's working pretty well.
Okay, and I guess what can we share with the viewers/listeners of how to build a stronger, smaller team, if that is 6-to-1, of getting to know each other, especially if you're in the heating and air conditioning world today, we have a team of installers. So you basically have a crew per truck, two men per truck, 2 guys, 2 gals, whatever your team does. But so you've got 2 per truck. You've got then you've got your if you do air duct cleaning, or if you do in the different trades, electrical, you might have more than 2, but it's pretty rare. Then you got your service technicians and your maintenance technicians. You've got, most of the time, unless you're training someone, you've got 1 per truck. Mm-hmm. So you've got a solo, and a lot of times they're extremely independent. So we've been discussing this more of how to build a stronger team in our service department, because they are so independent.
Sure. Yeah. So I think one thing you have to consider with those independent type of departments, like a service team, where 1 guy per truck, and they're running multiple calls per day. We live in the best time to be able to do that. They still feel as though they're independent, and yet we're able to be connected to them in ways that 20 years ago wasn't possible. We're through certain softwares that we use, we're actually able to see what they're doing in real time, and they can give our one of our supervisors, one of our 2 service team members who are responsible for our service department. They can give either one of them a call, or even myself if necessary. And we can actually go over and see in real time what they're doing, what they're experiencing, and troubleshoot with them on the phone and keep them going, keep them motivated. And then, just having something as simple as having a group chat. Is it the best way to communicate important things? No, because let's be honest, scrolling through a group chat, hearing the constant dings, some people have it on mute because maybe they're in a conversation with a customer, but for the most part, even just having something as simple as a group chat is a good way to keep the guys as a part of a team. I hate to, I guess, what's the word? Condone the meme culture, but nonetheless, and there's a lot of really good HVAC memes out there, and the service guys have a lot of fun with that. And it gives you kind of that personal touch, like, oh, that I've been there, I've seen that, I've done that, I've been that guy before, and so it creates this ability for the guys to connect, even though it's very rare they're actually in the same room together. So, for those type of departments, cohesion does look a little different, but it's certainly possible with today's technology, and it can be fun. And then when you do get together, you have more reference points to kind of pick up quicker and get the ball rolling. So, there's definitely ways.
There is, because as much as we want self-sufficiency within our company, we have to have team efficiency. We have to have strong teams. We have to have strong people. So we try to hire. Hiring's the key, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about that here coming up. How to interview for the right chemistry and the right stickability. But if we're talking about self-sufficiency, and we are also talking about the team, I think a lot of companies have a challenge in how often to bring the team together. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we do it at McAfee as far as bringing each team together and then what's being discussed?
Yeah, so I can speak to what we've done since I've been here, and that's been a couple different things. Just experimenting with the once a month meeting, maybe once a month, hour and a half meeting. And then we obviously have our quarterly meetings where we do the breakout sessions, but that aside, just the monthly meetings, we were doing kind of like an hour and a half type of thing, and then we kind of shuffled into, alternating days to make sure the on-call guys aren't having to come in real early. So we've experimented. Right now we're doing twice a month, sometime, but we've also, again, technology that has come down the pike. We're able to do some meetings virtual, so it really depends on the content. But that is an option for us now as well, to do a virtual meeting for short, quick, to the point things. And then we also have, some things that just have to be done in person. And so, really, I think we're trying to find that happy medium. and be consistent with it. So I look forward to talking about that further in the future. But for the service department specifically, we're still kind of experimenting with some things there. But for our install and air duct cleaning department, it's really easy to meet on a regular basis because they're here. They're here in-house. They start at the shop every day. And so I can speak a little more to that. We meet every day with the install team in some capacity, even if it's just for 5 minutes going over some pictures of the job, stuff like that. We meet, we communicate regularly, and that's served well. That served us well.
And we do that, and that also includes the comfort advisor, who is our salesperson, and they meet with their crew, whoever's installing their system or systems. They meet with them every morning or every night and review the entire job. Because I always said from day one, informed people make better decisions. When I sold all my jobs, I met with our team every single morning and we reviewed the job, and sometimes I even drove out to the job with them and showed them exactly how I wanted it done and how I went over it with the customer. So information and communication is very important.
Yeah, communication especially because, for example, an installer could get to the job and actually see a more efficient way to do something than what they talked about with the salesperson. But what they may not realize is that the salesperson had a particular conversation with a customer, and the customer wants it that way for a reason.
Yeah.
Therefore, it needs to happen. So before an installer accidentally makes the sales guy look stupid, having those conversations up front really just makes everyone's day go a lot smoother. So it's the little things, and the more you meet, the more consistent, the better relationships you build, the better those meetings are going to go, and the more is going to be retained. And it's just going to make your operation a lot smoother in the long run.
Yeah, and many reasons why you want to meet and go over things is because a customer can, the installers can get there and without any communication, the customer can say, I want the unit moved 20 feet down the house, and that was not agreed upon, that was not priced that way. And so it's very important that we know how the salesperson, the comfort advisor, sold the job. Yeah. So there's more reasons than just making the comfort advisor look stupid. It's for the benefit of the installer.
Sure, yeah.
So it doesn't create more work. And then for the installer's sake, they need to communicate and find out exactly how it's done so they don't have to redo it.
Yeah, that's a
because
good point.
they could either leave it where it was or move it and then have to move it back.
Right.
So anyway, that's just when you have smaller teams and you communicate often, it just keeps everybody on the same page, and informed people make better decisions, and we just like to make better decisions. So with that, we also like to have shared values, and that's what communicating and meeting often should give you, because having shared values, it seems like a fundamental concept, but you'd be surprised how often the core team is not on the same page.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why a lot of times everyone's different. Everybody was raised differently. Everybody has a different work ethic. Two people can be extremely hardworking, but hardworking in a different way. One could be, they could work all night. The other one can only work early in the morning. The other one can suck in the morning and not want to talk. So it's the work ethic and then how the work's done. One might be extremely meticulous, and that's why you have to have them be the detail guy. The last 10 to 20 minutes of a job goes to the detail guy. Mm-hmm. He needs to detail it. I often refer to Scott, who was my first employee, who was the most detailed person. And once we got all the work done, Scott was there for the last hour or two just detailing the whole thing and making it look good before we put our name on it. Absolutely. I put my name on it, and then Scott would sign the sticker. So, that all matters. And it's kind of like, Tiffany, my daughter, your sister, got a scholarship in rowing. You all got to be rowing the same direction, number one, but there's more techniques to rowing than what we know. And if you've never got on a rowing machine, you'll find out really fast why technique's important. Mm-hmm. Because I lasted about 2 minutes.
Yeah, you'll wear yourself out
fast. So the team's got to be rowing in the same direction. And team building has benefits for business. It also has benefits to improve productivity, and it improves employee motivation when you have shared values. So what do we do? What do we do at McAfee to help share values that everyone's on the same page as far as the quality of the work and the time of the job?
Well, there's checks and balances. We set goals for each other every day. Myself, our install supervisor, the comfort advisor, we come up with a goal for the installer. And I'd like to get to a point where the installers are making their own reasonable goals. But for now, we're kind of working with them, saying, "Hey, like this is what you're up against, and this is what we think is a reasonable time to get it done in," and that lines up with how we bid the job. And so the expectation is that you do that. And then if there's anything that pops up that's going to deviate from that, the expectation is that they communicate. And if it's necessary, then our install supervisor will come out there, give them the support that they need, and that, it goes back to that cohesion thing. I mean, it's trust. They know that we're not going to give them an unreasonable goal, and then if something does come up that's unexpected, which it does, we've got their back. That trust is really inherent to waking the guys up every day and coming back. And we have a really solid team right now, and there is a lot of trust.
And that's something else we talk about is trust and the respect among each other. You have to trust your team members. You have to trust, first of all, you have to trust your leadership. Leadership has to trust their team. And you also have to respect each other. In order to be a strong team and build strong teams, everyone has to be respect. You're not going to, we talk about basketball, but you're not going to have 5 guys on a team and, them arguing as they're running down the court. They're playing as a team. They might not hang out together after the game or in their life, but when they're on that court, they're all together. Mm-hmm. It's collaboration and collaborate and with each other and play as a team. So we interview for trust.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to look for sometimes, but it's really crucial. You can usually tell when you can't trust someone in an interview pretty quick, but it's just interviewing is such an intricate process, and it should be treated as such. I know for us, when we're looking for that person, how would you say that we kind of, I don't know, you've done this longer than me. How would you say we try to identify trust from the get-go?
Well, we ask specific questions. In other words, tell me about a time when this happened and how did you handle it? And, I think you just told me the other day you interviewed someone and they said they had a lot of experience, but when we started questioning them, they didn't quite have the experience they thought they did.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, they didn't really know as much as someone right out of trade school.
It was a real shame too, because, had that person been honest with their actual ability, probably would have taken them in. But they had identified themselves as somebody that, had 5 to 10 years worth of experience. And then I've had kids come out of high school from, the Career Center that know more and are more prepared. And so it's just a real shame. So that straightforwardness of, I guess someone's ability to assess themselves is really important to me. I don't know about you.
Yes. And with that, when I ask, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I get right away. I can pick up right away if this person is trustworthy, because a trustworthy person will list their strengths, and then they will be glad to list their weaknesses. They're not afraid of their weaknesses. They're very transparent. Transparency means when we're trained. Let's pretend we're interviewing someone with 2 years experience in service.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, what are your strengths in service department? And they say, well, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at this. I'm really good at this. What are your weaknesses? Well, I really need help with heat pumps, troubleshooting heat pumps, or replacing TXVs. It throws me off. I really need more work on that. I'll take those guys all day long.
Yeah.
But when you say, what are your weaknesses? And they go,
I really can't think of anything.
I don't want to hire those guys.
Right.
Because if you can't come up with 2 or 3 weaknesses, I don't want to hire you.
Yeah.
Because nobody walks on water, and they're not going to be honest when they're here. You've got to be honest with yourself and know your weaknesses. You need to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And a threat for an individual could be, I don't admit when I'm wrong. So that's a threat, and it's gonna affect us as a team. So we've got to hire the right people, and we've got to interview for trust and respect, because we must trust our teammates. If a service tech's following up on a service call, they've got to truly trust the person that was there before them. Mm-hmm. If it says that they did this, and this, and checked this, then they got to know they did. Because if they didn't do it, then it has to be done again, and it could really throw people off. So it's kind of like a new guy, like you say. We can actually see people as we train them, troubleshoot a system. When they call us and they have a problem, first thing we want to know is, what have you done so far?
Yeah.
Don't lie to us, because it'll throw off the whole troubleshoot system sequence of troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Did you check this first? Did you go to this second? Did you do this third?
Yeah. Well, the only reason somebody wouldn't be transparent in that situation, because this does happen from time to time, they'll say, well, what have you done so far? If you don't have enough to say, then it's like, okay, great. Well, why don't you go ahead and do what you're supposed to do and call me back?
Yeah, there you go.
People want to avoid that, and so, it comes down to integrity, which is, it's a big tenet here at McAfee. Integrity is, we have your back, and we're willing to do our part at any time of the day or night. You got to be willing to do yours, and so that's also a trustworthy thing. If I'm picking up the phone, honestly, and for the most part, I would say we're pretty close. But there's a couple guys, when they call me, I know that they really need help. And it's like, man, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready now. What do you got?
Yeah.
And so because they do their due diligence before it has to get to me, and so I appreciate that. And so we're trying to get the rest of our team there. But I would say overall, yeah, there's a really good element of trust on the team. I would say the hard part is because we have so much trust with each other. I would say something that, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. How do you get the cohesive group to accept new people faster and trust them?
Yeah. Well, what I've always said is, if you want this team to grow and you want to be on call less, and I don't want to get stuck on talking just about service technicians, because we've got a whole company.
For the most part,
yeah.
when you do get a tight knit group, maybe you have that group that they do hang out outside of work, and it's like a rite of passage, like how do you get those guys to say, well, that's all well and good, but we need to bring this guy into the fold a little quicker. How do you facilitate that?
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult, because they get in the comfort zone, being self-driven and by themselves, and now they've got to train someone else, and they've got to get them up to par. But they have to make it a mission. The mission is to grow the team, and in order to grow the team, you're going to have to spend some time with this person, and you're going to basically have to duplicate yourself with this person. And if you duplicate yourself, it's going to make your job a lot easier. You're going to be on call less, and you're going to have a much stronger team, and you're not going to have to worry about them as much when they're out on their own. And it just takes dedication to building a team. Everybody has to be on board, and everybody has to understand why we're building a team and why you have to get this person, like we said, accelerated in training much faster than most companies. Mm-hmm. And it's got to happen.
Yeah, so it goes beyond just it goes beyond just the job, just the day-to-day, and thinking about the team, thinking about the company. But that requires employees genuinely feeling as though they are a part of this. They're a part of this company, and it's their responsibility to grow it too. And that's a mindset in and of itself. So, yeah.
It is. But if you look at leadership, it has to be trusted. We do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And if we mess up, we let people know. We have to be transparent. Sales team has to say, they have to be trusted what they say to the customer. If they tell the customer something wrong, they need to fess up to it and admit it and move on. We can't have cover-ups. The CSRs tell the customer certain things. Today everything's recorded.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go back and listen.
That's nice.
20 years ago, that wasn't the case. We had to trust our team to say the right thing because, did you say that? Yes. Or no, I didn't say that. And then you've got in every department, accounting, my goodness, you've got to trust accounting. It has to be trusted. There was just a company I heard of the other day where this person had been there 16 years, and she was pocketing thousands of dollars a year, $40,000 to $50,000 a year extra.
Wow.
And it took the company a long time because they didn't have the proper CPA to do audits and all that kind of stuff, and it took them a long time to figure it out. So every department has to be trusted, and if we hire for trust, it does make it a lot easier. I think so many companies are worried about getting a person in a truck seat and getting them out running calls for not just taking care of people, but making more money. The more people I have in a truck, the more money that comes in this company. I'm more concerned about building for trust and taking care of people first, and then everything else comes. And, also as far as the trust goes, having the transparency and how we do it, and how we do it even quicker. And we're a different kind of company when it comes to sense of urgency and speed, which I've talked about many times on this podcast, of being faster. It used to be the big ate the slow. Now it's the fast eat the, or it used to be the big eat the small, and now it's the fast eat the slow. So it's you've got to be able to do things just as well, faster. Some people will argue that, well, I can't do it fast and still be accurate. Yes, you can. You just need to learn and practice, and it will get faster and faster, and you'll be just as accurate as you were, as slow as you were. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So, and also, if you do hire someone and you hire wrong, you thought you crossed all the boxes off, and you get them in here, and they're just not the person that you hired, and they're just not going to fit in well, and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people have told you they're not going to make it. Yeah. Don't prolong the problem.
I'll tell you, I mean, I talked about in the last podcast how, I just feel like I've had an immense amount of freedom to experiment in this position, and that's been great. And, with freedom, with freedom comes really big wins and really big losses, and you just got to eat both of them, And so one of the big losses that I think I had was just, doing just that, not seeing the signs because, for one reason or another, maybe I had a bias and I was like, no, they're going to be great. Just wait till they get this breakthrough. Or, I was like, well, we got a lot of calls to run, so they're running them. Yeah. And so, for one reason or another, I made the mistake of not seeing the signs, even when people were like putting them right in front of my face. And, with that, you learn, but, it's not something I'm going to do again. It is not, even though it solves the problem of, we're able to hit more customers, we're able to run more calls, Cool. But you have lingering effects within your team by hanging on to someone who doesn't fit that mold, who doesn't fit that culture. It's just not healthy.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I hate to call any human being a virus, but it's like a virus in the body. It's you just gotta snuff it out as soon as possible. It's for the betterment of the rest of the parts, right? So.
Well, we're all guilty. We're all guilty of what you said of keeping people too long, because we're worried about what will we do without them. Well, what if they quit tomorrow? What will you do without them then?
Figure it out.
Yeah. And who was the comedian that? Here's your sign.
That was Brad Stein.
Yeah,
back in the
here's your sign.
Early 2000s.
But it's
was it Brad Stein?
I don't know.
I think it was.
He did use that, but if you've got an employee that you hired wrong, and you can see there's a sign right there. It's a big sign that says "I'm not working out." Here's your sign. Fire fast, hire slow.
It's going to bother me now.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, so I think we've talked about this going part 3.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of meat on this bone going part 3, especially about remaining more flexible and why we've talked about in part 1, we mentioned culture a little bit, but why is it so important to train people for culture? We're going to talk about that in part 3.
Yeah.
And we're going to look for how to look for evidence of learnability, I call it. How to look for that evidence. And I'll tell you what, a lot of companies don't do, and we've been guilty, is not calling references and previous employers and asking them if they could hire them again, would they? Now, a lot of people won't give you that information, but it's legal to ask. If you had the opportunity to hire them again, would you? And if the answer is no, there's your sign. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's not 100%, but it's probably 90. Okay. If we get rid of someone here, if we get rid of them, now we have hired people back who have left us and found out the grass wasn't as green, and they have come back to us. But typically when we fire someone, we'd never take them back.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head. But
so with that, anything else you want to add in this part 2 about building a team more successfully in your organization?
Yeah, just to reiterate some of the things we talked about already in part 1 and then part 2, we talked a little bit about just kind of how we've restructured and why that's been beneficial for us, establishing leadership, differentiating our leadership structure. And then we talked about today, once you've figured out that structure, once you've established those leaders, empowered them, then what do you do with your team? How do you not just maintain the culture, but actually fortify it? At least, hopefully, that's what I think we've talked about today. That was the goal. And so, when you listen to this, I just want to challenge anyone to go ahead and get down there in the comments. First off, like it, subscribe, but also, get in the comments. Tell us, what stuck out, what helped, and what would you like to know more about, and then that can kind of fuel the fire for round 3, and we'll have some fun with it.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks, Travis, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, before we wrap up today, I want to thank Travis again for being on here and talking about building stronger teams. But if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe below. You can also support this podcast by rating and reviewing on iTunes or your preferred listening platform. Keep listening, because we're going to continue to challenge you in the team building skills. And we're going to talk more about that next week in part 3. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram or Facebook at The Greg McAfee Show. No spaces, no underscores. Be sure to tune in next week. And as always, thanks for listening. Carry on and have a great day.